Welcome back to The Explainer. Today we're unpacking a psychological phenomenon from the source text, The Invisible Self. And honestly, it's incredibly fascinating, but also deeply personal. We're going to look at the exact mechanics behind a feeling that pretty much all of us understand, but we so rarely say out loud. You know the feeling, right? You're sitting at a dinner table, totally surrounded by people, yet you feel like you're made of glass. You're physically there, your voice works, but it's like you're completely unseen. Well, today, using insights directly from our source material, we're breaking down exactly why this happens. We'll map out the hidden mechanics of social invalidation so you can finally understand the invisible forces at play the next time you're in a crowded room.
I want you to take a second and really think back to a time you felt entirely ignored in a group setting. Maybe you told a joke, and crickets. Not because it wasn't funny, but because literally no one paused their conversation to hear it. Or maybe you shared an idea in a meeting. It was met with total silence, and then a colleague says the exact same thing 5 minutes later and gets all the credit. Man, it is a heavy, incredibly isolating human experience. It feels profoundly personal, almost like a direct reflection of your worth. But, and this is a huge but, what if I told you your brain is actually doing something highly structural and deeply protective in that exact moment?
Section 1. Seen but not registered.
So to really grasp what our minds are doing behind the scenes, we first have to establish a baseline for this isolating phenomenon. We need to define exactly what kind of invisibility we're talking about here. The source text uses this absolutely brilliant term, feeling emotionally transparent in groups. Think about what transparency actually means. If a window is transparent, you know the glass is there, right? But your eyes look straight past it to the trees outside. In a social setting, feeling emotionally transparent means people might acknowledge your physical presence. Like, they know you're sitting in the chair, they might even ask you to pass the salt. But your emotional footprint, your inner world, your actual contributions to the group's energy, completely bypassed. It's an eerie feeling for sure, being physically opaque but emotionally invisible to the folks sitting just 2 feet away from you.
And that leads us to this profound phrase straight from the text, seen but not registered. Think about the unique weight of those words. Being fully unseen, like literally hiding in the shadows, is one thing. But being looked at, having someone make actual eye contact with you, and realizing your existence just isn't absorbing into their consciousness, that they're looking right through you, oof, that brings a very specific kind of ache. It's a pain born right out of the gap between physical reality and emotional connection. The text emphasizes this to validate that, hey, you aren't imagining things. This lack of registering is a real, measurable social dynamic.
Okay, let's dive into this. Section 2. The shyness misconception.
Because this right here is where society usually gets it completely wrong. For decades, we've had this standard, socially accepted label for people who shrink back in groups or feel unheard. We just write it off as a simple personality quirk, right? But the research we're looking at today fundamentally shatters that narrative. The myth is that feeling invisible or checking out of a conversation is just shyness. We treat it like it's innate, like being introverted or having blue eyes. But the reality revealed in our source material? Radically different. This isn't a personality flaw, guys. It's a nervous system response. When you shut down in a group because you feel unheard, it's a biologically driven reaction. You aren't just shy. Your body is actively responding to an environmental stimulus. It's exactly like flinching right before you get hit.
Now, what's really interesting about this is that crucial word, learned. It is a learned biological defense mechanism. You weren't born with a brain that wanted to make you feel like a ghost at dinner parties. This isn't some defect in your character. Your nervous system is basically a highly tuned machine designed to keep you safe from pain, and yes, that includes emotional and social pain. Just like a toddler learns that a hot stove burns and naturally pulls away before even thinking about it, your nervous system learns from your social environments. It recognizes a pattern of emotional danger and deploys a defense mechanism. Simple as that.
Section 3. The nervous system shield.
So, now that we've busted the myth of shyness, we need to uncover the precise mechanics of how this actually works. Why does the brain trigger this feeling of emotional transparency? How exactly does our nervous system build this invisible wall around us? Well, it all starts with the root cause identified in the text, repeated social invalidation. And notice those words, repeated and chronic. We aren't talking about one bad date or a single awkward chat at the water cooler. This is the chronic experience of having your presence, your input, or your feelings dismissed over time. It's a gradual erosion. Think of water dripping on a stone. One drop does nothing, but thousands of drops, they literally carve a canyon.
When you're repeatedly socially invalidated, maybe in childhood, maybe at a toxic job, or in a past relationship, your nervous system is taking meticulous notes. It is charting the data of your social environment.
Let's look at how this builds chronologically. The text breaks this down into a very clear three-step process. Step 1, like we just discussed, is the repeated social invalidation. The data is collected. Then, step 2 is where the nervous system really kicks into high gear. Anticipation. See, the brain is an expert prediction machine. Because it has experienced the pain of being ignored in the past, it starts anticipating it in the present. You walk into a room and your brain goes, "Uh-oh, I know how this goes." And that triggers step 3, which is honestly the most fascinating part of the text. The brain preemptively dismisses itself. Before anyone else even has the chance to talk over you or ignore your joke, your brain flips a switch and makes you feel emotionally transparent. To really break this down, imagine your nervous system as a tough bouncer at a nightclub. The bouncer sees a rowdy group approaching, in this case, a group of people your brain predicts will ignore you. Instead of letting them into the club to wreck the place, the bouncer simply locks the front door. By dismissing itself, your brain totally avoids the sharp, acute pain of external rejection. It decides that a quiet, numbing invisibility is much safer and way less painful than putting yourself out there and being actively ignored by the group. This whole dynamic, it's operating entirely as a protective shield. So the crucial point is this. When you feel emotionally transparent, when you feel like a ghost in a crowded room, your body is not failing you. Your nervous system is actually succeeding at its job. It's protecting you. It's actively shielding you from the anticipated sting of the group's apathy. This completely flips the script. Instead of sitting at that dinner table beating yourself up for being quiet, or thinking you're just too shy or uninteresting, you can recognize that your biology is just trying to keep you emotionally safe based on past data.
Which leaves us with this final provocative question to wrap up our explainer. How does this unseen nervous system mechanic play out in your daily life? Now that you have the vocabulary from the invisible self, I highly encourage you to observe this within yourself. The next time you feel your emotional presence slipping away in a group, just pause. Acknowledge that bouncer at the door of your nervous system. Thank it for trying to protect you. And then, armed with this new understanding, ask yourself, do I actually need that shield in this room with these new people? Thanks so much for joining me for this explainer. Keep questioning the unseen mechanics of your mind, and I'll see you next time.